While I was laying down on the ground with all those beasts ravaging my mind, thoughts came rushing back into my head. I can finally remember his face. "Whose face?" he asked. "His," I replied, coldly, honestly, reverently. "Whose face exactly?" "The man that came down from the sky and saved me on a chariot of fire, the angel." "You mean alien," my father interjected. "I don't know what to think of this thing, son. This is all a bit too weird for me. But I have to ask, what did this thing look like?" He looked just like a World War II Nazi propaganda poster. He was tall, really tall. He had 6 fingers on each hand, and his face was obscured by a big red beard. There was a heavy, spicy smell to him, like incense. He was wearing some kind of skin-tight uniform, the color of 1,000 jewels melted together into a space-age polyester. He glowed, but not from some hidden technology, just from the colorful and bright nature of his aura, his spirit. He stopped Mr. Riley dead in his tracks. Mr. Riley just stood there, unblinking and frozen, like he was in some kind of stasis. 5 of the small gray automatons encircled him and held hands, and the angel began to chant. He picked me up, just like you did. My bloody, broken leg never hurt while he was there. The throbbing eased, and the blood stopped gushing out with every beat of my heart. The angel told the demons inside of Mr. Riley to drop his shovel. He did. The angel told him never to harm me, or anyone, ever again. "You have claimed fruit from the vine that wasn't yours to reap. This ripe one you shall not have." Somehow I knew his language. His mouth didn't move when he spoke. And then he told Mr. Riley to sacrifice himself by offering his brain before the 4-pointed red star, and that if he did this much, his spirit might be spared in the coming judgment. A day later, Mr. Riley stuck his head into the 4 spinning blades of the propeller of a single-engine aircraft. After the angelic being had ensured that Mr. Riley's demons were submissive, he told me that I could not be harmed. Not until my time of fulfillment, because I had changed. I am still changing and will continue to change, as well as many other star children. The whole of us, and many others, would not taste death until the coming of the new age. That night, for the first time, I saw my own aura, a brilliant, deep indigo. This was the color of a young, unfolding enlightenment. I also remember him saying that he would be in contact with me again. "When your mind has grown to accommodate the acceleration of time and multiplicity," he said, "when your aura will shift white, which will indicate that your crown chakra is allowing light flow from your higher spirit to manifest itself into this dimension of reality. White is the rainbow of all your lives condensed into a single point of energy. The clear light, my higher self. Then," he said, "you will attract the light of the sun, and soon the whole earth will glow yellow, the color of an illuminated humankind. Now, the halo of salvation and transformation is cradling this planet like an invisible ring of mental energy, struggling to become manifest on a physical plane." I didn't know if this was true, but it all seemed right to me. I didn't really even understand what he was saying to me. But it's starting to make sense in some weird way. Then he just disappeared like a ghost, like he hadn't even been there at all. The object he arrived in hovered in the sky for a few more minutes. Mr. Riley regained consciousness. I guess I just passed out from the pain after my light savior left me. All I recall is being thrown over Mr. Riley's shoulder and watching the blood trail get longer and longer as he carried me up my steep driveway like a sack of wet rice. I finished my rant. I sat up to see the field again for one last time, and the black fog of the hungry ghosts that stalked the land of my death and rebirth. I wanted to leave, and Joseph finally obliged me. We started off to the bookstore. There is no denying that something happened to me, and I have no reason to doubt my memory. I don't know if I'm crazy, Joseph. In the hospital, there were many people who talked about aliens and demons. They all seemed confused, out of their heads, but I can see these things. They are real. And I can carry on a conversation and still think rationally, and do math in my head. I can't be crazy. Well, schizophrenia does first start to reveal itself in males during their late teens. I thought this was his attempt at a joke. I have no clue if you are crazy or not either, but you do see the things you say you see. It's for a reason. Let's keep this between you and me for now. Can you make me that promise? I could tell my story intrigued him. His eyes showed no indication of doubt. Of course I can. You can't possibly think I would want people to know the things I've seen, and the things I still see on a daily basis. They would think I was loony. To tell you the truth, if it wasn't for all of those weird drawings and that weird language you've spoken, and the short stories you've been writing, not to mention these crop circles, I probably wouldn't believe you. But son, I never doubted you before, and I have no reason to start now. So let's get back on the road. We need to get to the bookstore before it closes. I'm sorry I wasted your time and brought back painful memories. I'm not going to bother you about this again, but please keep me updated on anything you see or find out. My father was a truly good man. He accepted the ridiculous news I gave him with love, understanding, and the blind faith of the biblical Joseph. I thought about the Norse stream I'd written a day earlier and realized how similar Joseph was to the protagonist, Yusuf. I would have to select a volume on Norse mythology when we got to the bookstore. My brain felt ravenous for knowledge, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on some new books. I wondered if I should offer to pay for it, now that I had some money to my name. I patted my shirt pocket. "Wait, where is my check at?" I asked frantically. "Right here." My father pulled it out of his pocket and handed it to me. It was moist. "Why is it so wet?" "You were clenching it really tight whenever you fell down to the ground. You were soaked wet with sweat." "Thank you." I sat up. "Why don't we open that envelope up and see how much the Casey family left you?" I carefully opened the envelope and pulled out the check. I gasped. "A lot," I told him. "Well, how much is a lot? Are we talking game show money?" "Yeah, game show money. She left me $25,000. That's pretty good, right? I asked, having no real understanding of money or its fiat value. Heck yeah, that's real good, son. That's a mighty fine little chunk of change. Manna from heaven. That ought to pay for a college education. You need to save that money in a high-yield savings account. Let it accrue some interest. That's what I would do with that much money. But it's yours, so I can't tell you what to do with it. You're a grown man now, and you have to make a grown man's decisions. But for the moment, while I can afford it, I'll make up for some lost time and spoil my firstborn son. I could see that he wanted to do what he could for me. Some part of him still felt like he owed me. Well, that's okay with me, I said. I'm about ready for things to start going my way. You know what's good for clearing out the old noggin? Good old talk radio. My father flicked on the radio to Sean Hannibal, who was berating a caller unnecessarily. My father constantly interjected his opinion into every part of the talk show and lectured me when he thought it was proper. Maybe, if you would let me, I would get the book on government so when we talk about the economy, politics, and current events, I'll have something to say too. We can buy you as many books as you need, son. Just make sure not to buy more than you can read. I'm a very fast reader now, for some reason, I bragged. I was reading Genesis as he attempted to socialize me. I was already close to the end of the first book of the Bible, and it had only been 20 minutes since we left the field. I didn't see how it was possible for someone to take so long to read this book. I didn't understand then that no one really read the Bible, they just claimed it. How could so many religious practitioners not sit down and read the one book that their faith professes to be the complete truth, the very Word of God, the one and only truth? And from what little I knew about Jesus, I found it startling that the character Joseph was so similar to him. In the Bible, Joseph was betrayed by his 12 brothers and sold to the Egyptians as a slave. He was also a powerful diviner of the future, who was so deeply connected to dreams in much the same way that I am. He used his abilities to advance himself in the court of Pharaoh until he was promoted to supreme advisor. Joseph was a shaman, interpreting the signs of the earth through his dreams instead of relying on the literal voice of God coming out of the heavens. I found comfort in this story. He wasn't considered crazy like I was. He was considered a prophet. I liked that. I wondered what Mrs. Casey's congregation would think of my religious interpretations and moral theories. I was already beginning to get anxious for this coming Sunday. I had to research an extensive amount of religious material, virtually the whole Bible. I figured it would only take me a few days, maybe the better half of the week. By the time we pulled up into the parking lot of the bookstore, I had already discovered that Adam and Eve were not the first humans in the Bible. On the 6th day of creation, God created man. Then he rested, and when he woke sometime later, he created Adam from the dust of the ground and Eve from Adam's rib, and placed them in the Garden of Eden, which was surrounded by the land of Nod, where other humans already dwelt. This is painfully obvious when one realizes that Cain, who killed his brother Abel, fled into the land of Nod and found a wife to marry there. Eve then gave birth to her third child, and she named him Seth, which means third child in Hebrew. If Adam and Eve, through process of incest, brought about a daughter for Cain to marry, then she would be the third child, and Seth would not have his name. The whole idea that Christians support is that humanity was born through a process of incest. If that were true, we would have died out long ago through a series of horrific genetic deformities. It's obvious upon reading the Bible that humans existed before God created Adam and Eve. According to the text, humans were made on the last day of creation, at which point God rested, and on the next day he created Adam and Eve. It seemed to me that Adam and Eve were not the first humans to be created by God, merely the first humans that God, or a likewise powerful entity, created as personal companions. It was possible that Adam and Eve were just the first socialized humans, but it was just a hunch. Perhaps they were the first humans given souls. All of these were possibilities that the text seemed to support, but the Bible is very unclear on the topic. I theorized that the other humans in the land of Nod might merely be creatures God created just as he had the other beasts of the wild, through a natural form of evolution. First came the beasts of the sea, then the beasts of the fields, then man. This was Darwin's theory as well. Perhaps the humans created before Adam and Eve were Neanderthals and other early Paleolithic cavemen, and Adam and Eve were the first true humans. If this were the case, Cain would have gone out of the Garden of Eden to mate with one of humanity's early cousins. I suppose if it is possible for a God to create man out of the dust of the ground, it is just as likely, if not more so, that humans were created by a race of sophisticated aliens which primordial humans perceived as God or various gods. If this is the case, perhaps Adam and Eve were the first genetic hybrids of early humans and intelligent aliens. Maybe even dirt or clay was used as the medium for Adam's cloning, at which point DNA from Adam's rib was used to create his female counterpart, Eve. This would explain the sudden advancement of civilization thousands upon thousands of years ago. It would also explain the missing link that exists in our great ape fossil records, not to mention a plethora of curious ancient Sumerian tablets. If this is the truth of our origins, we have to ask ourselves why this was done. Were we created as pets, slave laborers, or were we just a side effect of an experiment gone wrong? Maybe an alien race got stranded on Earth, and while they were confined, they decided to reproduce the only way they knew how: genetic splicing and cloning. Or perhaps some benevolent force saw the potential in our early human ancestors and just decided to help us along our evolutionary path because they saw something of themselves in our species. I was able to interpret these things because I wasn't reading the Bible with any religious preconditions, besides my experiences with Pastor Casey years before. I read it new, reborn. Even though I had at that point only read Genesis, I knew the Bible would be a good read, and I expected I would learn a lot more about Christianity than most Christians knew.